All right, thank you everyone for coming. My name is Patrick Donovan. I'm the Republican Town Committee Chairman. Welcome to our 2021 caucus debate. Thank you for being here, and please, thank you very much for putting your phones on mute. The first thing, I'd like everybody to stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Amen. All right, everyone sit down. To my right is Ryan Fazio, your state Senate candidate in the special election, which will be held on Tuesday, August 17th, prompted by the abrupt resignation of Democrat Alex Kazar. Last Saturday, Ryan convincingly won the convention for the 36th Senate District. That's the western half of New Canaan, northern Stanford, and Greenwich. Ryan would like to say hi.
Thank you for having me. My name is Ryan Fazio, and I am your candidate for state Senate if you vote at New Canaan High School. And boy, like it or not, over the next month, the attention of the entire state is going to be fixed on this state Senate race. It is going to render a verdict to the entire state of whether the status quo is acceptable in Connecticut or whether we can do better. Whether we can do better than the 6th highest unemployment rate in the country and the slowest rate of economic growth of any state in the country, whether we can do better than the 2nd highest tax burden and the 2nd highest debt burden for the next generation, whether we can do better than a 35% increase in homicides in our state cities and a diminishment of the morale of police, and whether we can do better than diminishing our great traditions in Connecticut of home rule, local control of zoning, and schools. I, for one, think we can do better. I think that if we deliver a change to our state government, that the future can be brighter for this community and for the entire state. And that change must start on August 17th in this special election. So I have an ask of all of you. First, if you vote at New Canaan High School, make sure you vote there on that day or sooner by absentee ballot. We'll be sending you absentee ballot applications in the mail, or you can go to our website to get one and send it to the town clerk. But also, please make a list of 10 or 12 or 14 friends and family in the district and make sure that they vote. This will be a low turnout election in the middle of August. This will be a close race. It could be decided by 100 votes or 200 votes. I'm totally serious. But the direction of the future of the state will be in jeopardy. So it's very important. But I think if we win it, we will send a clear message to the entirety of Connecticut that a change is going to come. So thank you for all your support.
So if you vote at the high school, normally you're in the 36th. Absentee, let's get it done. In person or absentee. Nick and Whitney Williams will have an event for Ryan on Thursday the 29th. What time?
6 p.m.
6 p.m. All right, great. Close that door. All right, folks. Connecticut is a one-party state. Everybody here is aware of that, or should be aware of that. If you look below the governor's mansion, Democrats control everything in Hartford, every other executive office, both houses of the legislature, and they have done this for decades. 3 of our 4 largest cities, Bridgeport, New Haven, and Hartford, again for decades. Of Connecticut's 169 towns and cities, only 1 town is majority Republican. That's New Canaan. Why are we different? Why are we the last kingdom? It's because what we're doing here. New Canaan's Republican caucus is the most open, free, and democratic, with a small d, in the state. That's for both parties. New Canaan Republicans choose their candidates, not a committee behind closed doors. This messy old New England exercise in free and self-government works, and you should all be very proud of it. Now, I'm going to introduce the uncontested candidates at our caucus. And would you please stand when I call your name? First Selectman Kevin Moynihan. Selectman Nick Williams. here. I didn't see Andrew yet. All right, applause. Board of Assessment Appeals, we have Kevin McIntosh and Pavel 11. Pavel's here, I think, right? Arvin Bajaj, Marianne Mercagliano, Brent Pepe, and Jill Guzzetti. So Marianne and Jill are here. All right. Candidates, you're all going to do great tonight. Rest assured, no questions were shared with any other candidate prior to this event. We cannot control all the noise and distractions that go on in social media or in the rumor mill, but no questions were shared. That I can give you my word. All right. Before we get into the debate, and a reminder, as you guys all have this handout right in front of you, we have 16 candidates competing for 9 contested positions. That is a wonderful thing. Before we move to the debate, I would like everyone in this room to thank the candidates with a round of applause for their willingness to put themselves through this process and to serve their community. We are very lucky. Candidates, watch your step. There's lots of wires back here. Don't want anyone to trip. Our moderator tonight is the Honorable Fred Wilms, our former Connecticut State Representative of the 142nd District, who represented New Canaan and Norwalk for a number of years. He served our town in Connecticut well. His voice is sorely missed in Hartford. And Fred, it's all yours.
Well, first of all, hi everyone, and thank you so much for inviting me back. It's just great to be here. And I'm delighted to serve as moderator for the forum. What I'll do is I'll spend a couple minutes just going over the format, what we do, and then I actually need to personally relocate over there so that I don't get in the way of the Zoom thing. So we have 3 different forums. The first is for town clerk, the second is for town council, and the third is for board of ed. The town clerk, we have 2 candidates for 1 seat. The town council, we have 6 candidates for 4, and for board of ed, we have 8 for 4. The way the format is going to work is the candidates will be seated up here, and from your left to right, they'll be alphabetically, so A all the way to C. There will be a number of questions that I will ask. They will start off with a 1-minute introductory or opening statement, and we'll go alphabetically. And then we'll get into the questions. A little interesting wrinkle on the questions to introduce some randomness to the event. They all came up earlier, and they have to dip into a hat and pull out a number. And so they're going to take turns being the first ones to answer the question. We don't want to sit next to someone sitting at the end of everything further to answer questions first of all. So it's kind of mixed up nicely. And then what will happen is whoever answers, so then we'll go to your right and then around, so we'll do that kind of sequence. And then we'll go through all the questions. At the end, each candidate will be given the opportunity to give a 2-minute closing remark. And then we'll start with town clerk, and then you go immediately to town council, and then we'll probably take a 5-minute break and then go to board of ed. We're privileged to have John Kritz and Marianne Mercagliano here over here. They're sitting at the table. They will give candidates a 10-second warning, and then they'll actually a bell will ring when your time's up. And we'll then immediately move on to the next candidate. And so we just we do need to end in a timely manner, so please just stay within the time limit. So that's really it. So I think we can go ahead and get started. We'll get started with the town clerk's position. I would like to invite Anna Kolakowski and Claudia Weber to please come on up. Are we all set? Okay, let's get started. So Anna, we will start with you. Please, you have your 1-minute introductory remark.
Good evening. I am Anna Krolikowski. I have lived in New Canaan my entire life, and that is not an exaggeration. I've never lived anywhere else, and I wouldn't want to. I live here with my husband, who has been a very active member of the community, and we have raised 3 children here. I am very connected to this town, and I've always found ways to be involved in making our town a better place. Shortly after high school, I worked for an accounting firm that I learned skills needed to run a customer service business. In 1992, I became the owner, operator of the New Canaan Baskin Robbins. For 28 years, I was known as the Baskin Robbins lady. During these years, I learned how to run a successful small business. For me, the keys to business success were exceptional customer service, strong physical management, and nurturing a customer-centered workforce. These skills align perfectly with my desire to become New Canaan's next town clerk. In 2019,
Thank you, Anna. Claudia, your opening remarks.
Good evening. My name is Claudia Weber, and I'm seeking re-election as the incumbent town clerk. I'm a lifelong Republican. I grew up in New Canaan in a family that was very active in politics and public service. I graduated from George Washington University with a degree in political science. I have a decades-long career in government in Republican positions, both elected and appointed, starting in Washington, D.C. in the Reagan Bush administration. I served the last 24 years as your town clerk, and 3 years prior to that as your Republican registrar of voters. I'm also a certified municipal clerk and a certified election secretary. Sorry. As a town clerk, I wear many hats and manage one of the most multifunctional offices in town government. I report to numerous state agencies and the Secretary of State and oversee almost everything I do. I have navigated through 24 years of changing state statutes and mandates, and last year my office managed more than $16 million in revenue. I hope to be able to continue as a profession.
Thank you, Claudia. All right, there are 5 questions that have been prepared for the both of you. Claudia, I think you picked number 1 out of the hat, so we're going to start with you. And here's the first question. Describe the duties and responsibilities of the town clerk's position with respect to the obligations it has to the town and to the state. You have 1 minute.
I have 1 minute. That's really hard to do in 1 minute. We are the official record keeper for the town. We have to be concerned with conservation and preservation of our town records for forever. We have to we have an archival vault and a regular vault where we house our documents. We have to be concerned with records management, freedom of information, ethics. Records management is a big part of what I do. I'm also the registrar of vital statistics, which deals with marriage, birth, and death records and everything that goes along with that. Elections, of course, is a big one, and I've had 24 years of election administration. And so we have, I have about 8 agencies, state agencies that I report to. And also
Thank you, Claudia. Anna, would you like me to repeat the question?
yes, please.
Describe the duties and responsibilities of the town clerk's position with respect to the obligations it has to the town and to the state.
Well, the town clerk is in charge of our records here, our land records, our vital statistic records, runs our elections. She's in charge of also making sure she serves the community in customer service. That's all I have to say.
Okay, all right. Thank you. Anna, you go first on the next question. The office of the town clerk manages many responsibilities. Please name the most important tasks the office is responsible for in any given fiscal period. The office of the town clerk manages many responsibilities. Please name the most important tasks the office is responsible for in any given fiscal period.
I believe it would be land records, vital statistic records, and also to be the individual that monitors our voting And
Are you finished? Okay, thank you, Anna. Claudia?
could you repeat the
Sure. The office of the town clerk manages many responsibilities. Please name the most important tasks the office is responsible for in any given fiscal period.
Well, that spans over a lot of oversight of what we do. But I think that integrity and neutrality is really important in what we do in every aspect of what we do. That could be dealing with elections. That could be dealing with any one of the number of things that we are responsible for. Again, 8 different agencies that we have to respond to, that we report to the state.
All right, thank you. Claudia, you go next on our next question. Connecticut state government is looking to expand absentee voting and early voting. Should this happen, what challenges will the town clerk's office face in future elections?
Whether or not it should happen or not, I have mixed feelings about that right now. If we do go to early voting or no excuse absentee balloting, and I think the state is moving that way. I don't know if it will go through or not, but some of the challenges would be, obviously we would have to hire more staff to take care of early voting or no excuse absentee balloting. That would increase the budget. Our biggest challenge to that actually is finding space within the building to have that kind of operation. Prior to this last presidential election, our staff was able to handle the amount of absentee ballots we got every year. This past time, we had 3 times the amount that we've ever had. So I think space is probably the biggest challenge that I'm finding.
Thank you, Claudia. Anna? Connecticut state government is looking to expand absentee voting and early voting. Should this happen, what challenges will the town clerk's office face in future elections?
well, I guess you can go either way. I mean, COVID has changed the way life has gone, and absentee balloting is becoming a big thing. Will it increase? It's going to be much busier. We're going to need more staff to handle something like this, and also. But also, it also gives people the option to vote absentee.
Okay, all right, finished. Thank you. Okay, Anna, the next question is to you. The town clerk serves as a municipal officer, but is also accountable to the Secretary of State and is subject to monetary fines under those fiscal responsibilities. Are you familiar with those responsibilities, and could you inform us about them?
I am fully prepared to deliver service while adhering to the regulations related to those services and protections of our town records. All the regulations pertaining to the town clerk's role are publicly available, and I actually have printed them here and reviewed them. I have read through them, understand them, and am fully capable of delivering the services of this office in strict accordance with the regulations mandated by the Secretary of State.
Thank you. Claudia? Sure. The town clerk serves as a municipal officer, but is also accountable to the Secretary of State and is subject to monetary fines under those fiscal responsibilities. Are you familiar with those responsibilities, and can you inform us about them?
Yes, I am. There are 2 basic divisions of the Secretary of State who we report to. One side is elections, and the other side are business services. Business services could include notary services, justice, just a piece that's in between. And of course, elections, that's all aspects of elections.
Okay, thank you. Claudia, the last question, this is the last question, and we start with you. What experience and qualifications do you have that makes you the best candidate for the position of town clerk?
Well, I have 24 years of doing the job. I have worked at the federal level, I've worked at the state level, I have obviously worked at the local level. I am a certified municipal clerk. I am a certified elections moderator. I was actually chosen as one of 14 trainers in the state for election moderators when Secretary of State started that program. I have training in disaster preparedness, conservation procedures, preservation. I have training in records management, FOIA, ethics, land records management, and of course I hold the title of Registrar of Vital Statistics. And I've developed relationships over the years across the state so that if I don't know an answer, I know who to call and can get the answers quickly.
Anna, what experience and qualifications do you have that makes you the best candidate for the position of town clerk?
Okay. As a former owner of a very successful small business that served the Canaan community for decades, I have extensive experience in customer service, physical management, cater to the needs of customers, leadership, and employee development. It is this skill set that makes me the best candidate for this position. As a former business owner and a current resident, I'm a true Canaanite. I know New Canaan and what its residents need and wants. I know what it takes to make the town's clerk's office a place that exceeds the needs of our community, which requires exceptional customer service, embracing technology, and a strong physical management. My experience in several diverse New Canaan offices, as well as my decade-long experience running a New Canaan business, is aligned perfectly with the responsibilities of the town clerk.
Thank you. That completes our questions, and we'll now move on to the closing statements, and these are in reverse alphabetical order. So Claudia, we can start with you for 2 minutes.
Town clerks tend to serve over many decades because the learning curve is so great. I'm proud to have achieved many advancements and improvements in my tenure. I've taken an office with only 6 typewriters into the 21st century by implementing modern technologies and new processes. In the town's more than 200-year history, the vast majority of land records in my office have been achieved during my 24-year tenure. My team and I couldn't possibly have done that without the introduction of new technologies and efficiencies. I was one of the first town clerks to enhance many areas in my office with technology and online capabilities. I have also made conservation and preservation a priority and instituted the town's first records management program. My office is open beyond normal business hours to help any resident in need, and I have made many a house call to those who are homebound. I am a champion of the Freedom of Information Act, at the same time as being fiercely protective of our residents' right to privacy. This year I prevented the Social Security numbers of our residents from being posted online. If the documents on the land records are to be placed online, it must be done responsibly with a reduction project. I have the funding for this project in my budget this year, but please know that I cannot protect your signatures or other information once this is done. And I would welcome to hear from you and hear your thoughts. I have loyally supported my party, while at the same time I've delivered fair and equal service to opposing and minor parties, and also to parties on different sides of an issue. I have no conflicts of interest. We have midterms elections coming up in 1 year, and presidential election only 3 years away. New Canaan needs a town clerk who has experience. This is a serious job that requires a dedicated, impartial, duty-driven public servant who has the knowledge and experience to execute the duties of the office skillfully and with integrity. I am that person, and I would be honored for your vote on July 20th.
Thank you. Anna, your 2-minute closing remarks, please.
My vision for the town clerk's office could be summarized how I ran my business, which is it's all about the experience. This customer-centered approach to running a business ensures that the town clerk's office will embrace a more streamlined process for accomplishing municipal tasks, will adopt online access for all functions, and will ensure that customer service is the office mantra. These areas will make our town clerk's office more cost-effective, time-efficient, and customer-friendly. In addition, when I'm elected, I will ensure that the town clerk's office embraces technology and enhances the experience for all customers. Our town is one of the few Connecticut towns that has not fully embraced technology. People today have zero tolerance for this. However, I'm committed to advancing technology and allowing remote record access. I am also mindful that protecting our residents' personal information remains paramount. My responsibility as a town clerk is to the public, and the public is our customer. Therefore, I will make this office and myself available to serve the needs of every resident, from the time you open the door in the morning to the time you close in the evening. To that end, my goal as the next town clerk is to provide the best service to the public in the most efficient, friendly, and cost-effective manner possible. When I'm elected, I will ensure that the visitors to the town clerk's office are treated as a paying customer. I will focus on ensuring that customers feel well served, welcomed, and their suggestions are embraced. I am thrilled that I can compete for this position. I can assure that the entire New Canaan community that your confidence in me and your votes will result in me becoming the most customer service friendly town clerk the town of New Canaan has ever had.
Thank you, and thank you to both of our candidates for being here. Maybe we should give them a round. Okay, as we mentioned before, I think we're going to move right on to the next portion, which is the town council debate. So if all the town council candidates could come forward, please, so that would be appreciated. Are these relevant?
They can for amplification, but it always going through that center disc right in front for the Gen 7.
Okay, are we all settled? Why don't we go ahead and get started? We'll start with the, as before, we'll start with the opening remarks, which are a minute, and as we agreed, we go in alphabetical order. So Tom, we'll start with you, and then work our way to Luke and Kimberly, and so on.
All right. Good evening. I'm Tom Barworth. If you'll forgive me, I'm not going to talk about myself in the opening remarks. I'm going to talk about our town, which I think is amazing, and how we dealt with COVID-19. Living in New Canaan didn't spare us the loss, fear, and disruption imposed by COVID, but it was a great place to weather the storm. Canaan's kids kept learning in person 97% of the time for K through 8 this year. Canaan's elderly were embraced by an army of town and volunteer workers who made sure they were safe and well fed, got them vaccinated in record time. The Canaan families with restless athletes and Zoom-bound breadwinners worked together to figure it out. And on the whole, New Canaan did figure it out. Now it seems like the whole world wants to live. So 4 more years in the town council in the greatest town on the face of the earth, I'm in if you'll have it.
Okay, thank you. Luke?
Thanks, Tom. I'm actually going to talk about myself. I do love the town. I don't know me. Luke Kaufman, 3 kids, 3 boys, 8, 6, and 5. Very active coach, baseball, football, lacrosse. Love the town, very active in Y, the town pool. We very calculated move. We love it here. We love the school system. It's fantastic. We're running on a traditional fiscally responsible Republican ticket, making sure that every voice in the community is heard, no matter what age category. We do the holistic approach, making sure the board has proper funding to continue the fantastic school system that performed very well during COVID. And I'm very excited. I'm going to cut this by like 70% due to the time, but I'm very excited to be here tonight and really appreciate the opportunity to represent the community as a whole.
Thank you. Kimberly?
I'm going to do a combination of both, talk about the town and myself. Good evening. I'd like to thank the RTC for hosting this forum and acknowledge my esteemed colleagues. My name is Kimberly Norton, and I'm running for town council. My husband and I moved to New Canaan from New York City 12 years ago. As an active mom of 4 children, you'll see me in our schools, town pool, playing field, the ballet studio, walking and waving, hiking our land trust trails, dining out in town, and attending Mass at St. Aloysius. I earned my doctorate in clinical psychology with high honors and was a presidential scholar and teaching fellow. I've worked in both public and private hospitals, counseling centers, and as a forensic psychologist for the NYPD. I understand small businesses, too, after running a private psychotherapy practice in the city for 15 years. I also recently wrote a book for young adults that made it onto the Amazon's bestseller list in this category. I'm caring, compassionate, and committed, and look forward to you getting to know me a little bit better tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Keith?
Hi, my name is Keith Ritchie. My wife and I have lived in New Canaan since 1991. That's 30 years. Our 2 children were raised here. Over the years, we have enjoyed this wonderful community and have participated in many activities. Perhaps I'm most well known for serving on the Parking Commission as chairman for the last 20 years. Well, I've just finished serving as the president of the New Canaan Men's Club and took them through the COVID crisis. And earlier, I served as president of the Exchange Club, and before that, president of the Dance Club. So I have been involved in New Canaan for this whole 30 years. Professionally, I'm a lawyer, have a business degree, and I have an advanced degree in law and tax law. So I can read financial statements, I can read legal documents, I can understand them. I'm used to dealing with government officials. I look forward to your support.
Thank you. James?
Hi, I'm James Yao. I'm running for town council, obviously. Many of you may have received my postcards or see my wife or one of my kids drop off palm cards to your homes. Sorry in advance for the added recycling. Or some of you may know me from my past advocacy for young children and families in town. My wife and I moved to New Canaan 8 years ago, and we now have my son Max, who's 8, and daughter Adeline, who's 6, both attending East. As a family, we are fully invested in this town and could not imagine living anywhere else. I feel an obligation to contribute to a town that has given us so much and believe I can do so by promoting some new, fresh ideas to the town council. As a town council member, I would encourage true transparency and accountability in our town government. To be clear, when I say transparency, I don't mean letting our town simply know about decisions or plans after they've been made, but instead doing everything within my power to inform constituents of what is going on. It should not be surprising that the town is so divided.
Thank you. Penny?
My husband and I have called New Canaan home for 40-plus years. 2 children successfully launched from our finding educational opportunities in the school system. Those of you who know me know that community service is an integral part of my DNA, and our town has provided multiple opportunities for me to contribute my ideas and energy. Involvement in school activities, always. Legal and voters, secretary for a long time. Beautification League, past president. Town council, I've served on all of the committees. With the Masters in Gerontology, I spearheaded the establishment, expansion, and now ongoing support of Bethel Community Center, service advisor to Staying Put, Get About Van. I'm a board member of Whately Life Care Network, and also have received a gubernatorial appointment to the state Commission on Women, Children, Seniors, Equity, and Opportunity. I'm a board member of Yankee Institute, which is a strong, Connecticut-based, fiscally focused public policy think tank, and secretary of the state.
Thank you. We'll now move on to our questions. We have 6 questions, as you know, you all picked numbers out of a hat, and Tom, you got number 1. So we're going to start with you. The first question is, what are some of the priorities that you seek to achieve on town council?
Well, my biggest priority is school funding. You'd think that wouldn't be controversial, but it turns out that it is. And understandably, it's 66% of the town budget. But I think that's my number 1 issue. And number 2 is the police station. I think our goal should be to renovate it in place, even if it's close to the cheapest option. Fighting neighbors is not something that is ideal, so finding another location is problematic. I also think a priority should be not necessarily of the town council, but of the town as a whole, to support the establishment of a new senior living center, similar to the one that was proposed for Oak Ridge, although not necessarily in that location. And finally, I think we should look at daycare. TDAC has already examined that issue, but in light of the new start time changes, we ought to make sure as a town we're providing services for children.
Thank you. Luke, you're next.
Yeah, I believe in the same Tom, excellent points is that education is what New Canaan stands for that. The sports programs, I believe that the Board of Education should be properly funded and supported with a path forward on how we're going to provide. They did an excellent there. They set the gold standard in terms of through COVID, and we want to continue to do that. The sports program, the New Canaan Athletic Foundation is very important. I think we could also set the bar locally, making this enrollment, as well as providing appropriate daycare, given that the new start times are in effect, especially families that have 2 income parents.
Thank you. Kimberly.
As a council person, my mission will be to ensure that our government remains responsive and accountable to taxpayers, students, local businesses, and elderly residents. My goals would be to protect property values, support our excellent schools, as Tom said, and Luke, support our downtown vibrancy, and also our historic and natural landscapes. I plan to listen to all points of view and bring a renewed sense of fiscal responsibility to the taxpayer.
Thank you. Keith.
There's a long list. Schools, the library, the police station renovation, maintaining our great parks, parking, more parking for downtown. What are we going to do about commuter parking? It doesn't seem like people are going to go back on the trains again. We need better cell service in this town. We need to rationalize the town assets. The town has more assets than we need. Some of those need to be trimmed down. We need to keep taxes low, but we don't want to be penny wise and dollar foolish. Spend money on the things that matter. So that's the list. When we're in the town council, there's going to be a myriad of issues, like I've just listed, that we will have to deal with. So people that are one-issue candidates, I think, will find after that one issue has passed that they may run out of gas. I won't. I'm interested in all these things.
Okay. Thank you. James.
Like I said, I would like to change the process some to make the process, no matter what the issue is, more transparent for everybody. And I want to be more responsive and accessible to the members of the community. And I think some of the town council maybe has veered away from that to some extent, and you don't get the reach out that I think really is what the town council is there for. I think the addition of, in addition to transparency, I'd like to take a solid look at the budgets. There's no reason why the budget, we should have one of the highest per capita taxes in all 169 counties or towns in Connecticut. I think there's no way we can claim to be fiscally prudent and have that happen consistently. So I think that's an important look. And I don't think that it should be confused that because you're fiscally conservative, that means you're slashing budgets. It's just a smarter way to look at spend.
Thank you. Penny.
Budget has always been a big emphasis of mine. I've been very concerned about the smooth flowing of our budget process. And along with that has been a focus on our town buildings and the efficient maintenance of that treasured resource that we have. I'm also being very concerned about a collaboration between the municipal side of governance and the Board of Education, and see that relationship improving so that we have more cost efficiencies and efficiencies that occur between the municipal side and the Board of Education side.
Thank you. We'll now move on to our second question. It's a bit of a long one, so bear with me. James, you picked number 2 out of the hat, so we'll start with you. So the question reads, the charter reads, the town council shall pass no appropriation not recommended by the Board of Finance, but may approve, disapprove, or reduce, but not increase, the amount of any appropriation recommended by that board. Faced with some of our present challenges, what would be your recommendations in order to better control allocations and or the budget process?
I think the first step is the budget process seems to be an annual process, yes, but it doesn't have to be completely annual. And when I say that, I mean there's no reason why the Board of Education, let's say, and the town council should only meet just before budget season. 6 months in, why not get an update to get an idea of where they stand and how things are coming out? It shouldn't be a surprise and be contentious every year when it comes to budget season. I think proper planning, proper collaboration, and just speaking, communication between town bodies would definitely help. In addition to that, I think that there are other ways to kind of improve the budgeting process. I think the town council has to embrace the fact that they have the ability to cut the budget and not just rubber stamp it because they feel obligated to do so. Take a serious look at the money you're spending. If you take $1 away from the Board of Education, that doesn't mean that you're stealing pencils from kids, right? So I think we have to take a serious look when we have one of the highest rates.
Thank you. Biddy, you're next.
Well, the I just want to say that we don't rubber stamp our budget. The budget process is actually a very, very involved process, and it starts many, many, many months before the actual preparation of the budgets, and in fact is reviewed on a monthly basis ongoing throughout the year. One of the things that I proposed, and we finally were successful in doing, is having a meeting of all four of our bodies, the Selectmen, Finance, Town Council, and Board of Education, in an off-site where we actually discuss where we want to go, what are the important issues to address during a particular budget cycle, and so that we are all on the same target as we approach our various responsibilities. The department heads are very, very, very concerned about their budgets, have very sharp pencils, and that doesn't mean that we then don't continue to look very deeply into their budgets.
Thank you. We move over to Todd. You're next.
So I'm going to tick off 4 items. First, I'd say that our finances are in phenomenal shape, which is good, but let's not take that for granted. So what can we attack? The ARPA monies. Use as much of the $6 million as we can to fund capital projects that we would have undertaken in any event, to dream up new things or pick winners and losers. Vine Cottage. We have too many buildings, and Vine Cottage is one of the few that's marketable. We get a good price and preserve the architecture when we sell it. Waveney House will cost millions more to upgrade. We should do that, but only after ensuring maximum use of space. No plan, no money. Movie theater, my heart says yes, but my head says maybe. We should have a comprehensive analysis of future costs before making any additional investments. School budget is last on my list. We should thoroughly vet each year's budget and avoid unnecessary expenses, but we should also recognize the incredible value that our schools provide.
Thank you. Luke?
Yes, I believe transparency, communication is key. Having everyone, aligned from all governing bodies. So what is very appealing to me is that I have over 2 decades of fiscal responsibility in commercial banking, currently heading a publicly traded $5 billion bank. I look at budgets on a daily basis, from strategy to blueprint to execution to the results. And, when reviewing these budgets, if you're fiscally responsible, it doesn't mean cutting. It doesn't mean there always has to be cutting and that's the best way. It's about, action, responsibility, making sure that the funds that are being allocated to specific uses, that the end result is the best product and service for the community.
Thank you. Kimberly?
One of the things that I like to focus on is the taxpayer. All of these ideas sound great, but we left out one really important person. We wouldn't be here without being a taxpayer. So what I'd like to see is smaller workshops or focus groups with people in the community. Instead of us telling you what we think we should have, I'd like to hear what you think we should do. And then with the expertise, the consensus building, work together to make a good solution. But shuffling buildings around because I feel one way or the other, to me, that's not good government. It's about the people and what you want and your taxpayer dollars spent in the most judicious way that we can do. Thank you.
Thank you. Keith?
If you want to repeat the question, because the answer is kind of straight.
Okay, sure. All right. The charter reads, the town council shall pass no appropriation not recommended by the Board of Finance, that may approve, disapprove, or reduce, but not increase the amount of any appropriation recommended by that board. Faced with some of our present challenges, what would be your recommendations in order to better control allocations and or the budget process?
Well, I'm not sure there's a better way to control expenditures. We had a budget of $154 million for the most recent fiscal year. That's based on a grand list of about $8 billion. And I think, I have that right, I think that is. And we can expect that the grand list is going to go up, so I wouldn't be surprised if we see a decrease in the mill rate this coming year. Even last year, the increase in the mill rate was only 0.5%. It's actually less than 0.5%. So I think our elected leaders have done a great job in keeping expenditures down. And I think one of the greatest resources that New Canaan has are the employees that work in this building and park and rec all over. I think the budget process is working extremely well, and I don't have any suggestions to improve it.
Thank you. We'll move on to our third question. Kimberly, you picked number 3, so we're going to start with you. What is your position on the preservation of historical buildings in our town? If they cease to remain standing, would it change the look, character, and feel of our town?
Well, I think that's a great question and one that's on the minds of everyone in this room, given all the things that have been happening in the town. I think that we have to look really carefully at all of those buildings that make New Canaan the quaint New England village that it is. One of the things that I'd like to research if I was on town council is could we have a way to incentivize private landowners to keep buildings standing if they're historic in any way. And there's different ways to do that, maybe with the town charter and the state statute. So I think it's an incredible priority because it's what makes our town look the way that it does. And I'd like to work hard to preserve as much as we can within fiscal budgets, but also be cognizant that it's a private landowner's right to actually keep or not keep the building. But what can we do to incentivize them to keep those buildings standing? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Keith? Well, I think when you come to historical preservation, you have a question of whether you're talking about public buildings or you're talking about privately owned buildings, and kind of phrase that public like the library. So I think Tim was referring to private buildings, and yes, I agree with her that we need to have incentives for people who have historic structures to retain those. When it comes to the quasi-public ones like the library, I do think those should be maintained. If they are as intrinsic to the heart and soul of New Canaan as the 1913 library, I think that they should be maintained. I will say this, the devil is in the details when you get into historic preservation. There was a big debate about the brick oil depot in Mead Park. It took years to have that taken down. And in my view, that had no historical significance, and I think the current administration did the right thing taking it down. Peaceful minds can disagree. That's going to be the tough issue. What's worthy of saying?
Thank you. James?
Yeah, I think as a former architecture student, I truly have an appreciation for architecture both. And one of the reasons I came to this town was to tour the Glass House, which was first introduced to me in Canaan. So I think it's very important, the historical aspects of what makes our town. So I think it's important to preserve some of the historical aspects of our town. But we need to be also cognizant of the fiscal costs of that. We have to let the town kind of decide if they can or voice their opinion on how the plan proceeds instead of having a plan 2 years down the road and fully baked and then having people have to kind of fight or struggle to get their point across or to get their perspective across. I think proper planning can save a lot of our historical landmarks in our town.
Thank you. Penny?
Preservation is something that's actually very sacred to me, even though I live in a very, very modern house. I think it defines who we are as a town. We all have a history. All of our families have histories. Our town has history. And I think that in order to continue to attract people that we are attracting in our lovely town, not only our schools and other amenities we have, but it is the character and appearance of our community. So I think whatever tax benefits may be available to folks to incentivize them to restore buildings would be very attractive. Whatever the town can do to assist the library in their mindset on their 120 days to preserve, restore the 1913 building, I think it would be an investment on our taxpayers.
Tom?
Yeah, I think some people know that my wife and I restored a 1724 building. Every time it went on the market, it was always touch and go as to whether somebody was going to destroy it. And we ended up expanding it and I think preserving it for maybe a century. I want to talk personally on the library. Officially, I actually support the new library. I will support the funding for the new library. I don't want to enemy it. It's really important for the town. But as not a matter of law or opinions or debates, but it's a matter of humanity and passion. I think that the proponents of the taking down the 1913 library should think more broadly about that. I think just it's a question of respecting your neighbors' opinions, even though they differ from yours. I think it's enormously valuable to the community, and we really need to rely on the library's humanity to find a way to save it.
Luke?
Yeah, Yeah, so I think historic preservation is key. I think a lot of people in the room came to New Canaan, that we do have that certain feel. We identify with the town. We also are part of the fabric of the community, and to identify with walking downtown. And when you're preserving a 1913 library, very historic, I think it's important that, you should listen to the community. You should listen openly to your neighbors and how they feel. I think that you can strike a combination of having, restoration and improvements and new products and services, because I do believe that the new library will drive foot traffic, which will bring the revitalization of the New Canaan downtown area, foot traffic, so then to start to see these storefronts. I think business is key for community-based, but I do think preservation is also an important aspect.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on to our fourth question, and Penny, you pick number 4. We'll start with you. The town's buildings infrastructure is a part of what sustains the different services the town provides. Some feel that the buildings create a financial burden for the town. What are your thoughts on the town owning or disposing of municipal properties, and should the town council have a vote and input in the decision-making process?
Well, let's see, I think I studied all 57 of these buildings that we own. And I'm very protective of our buildings. Most of them have very, very specific functions that are particular to the locations that they are existing in, like the landfill and the sewage treatment plant and that sort of thing. We are doing a wonderful job now of protecting our resources because we have a wonderful 25-year lifespan analysis of our buildings, and the building department uses that data to put in their budget as projects that need to be done in a timely, cost-efficient basis. I think it's important for us to not then have excess buildings, and there are really only a few that are that whose functions could be utilized in other locations.
Okay, thank you. Todd?
I think we do have too much space, but not by a lot. I think we have to be very targeted, as Penny said. There really aren't very many opportunities. I said earlier, Lion Cottage is an opportunity. There are some sentimental attachments to it, and certainly the exterior should be preserved as is. But functionally, it's the only way we're going to make progress economically with this excess of space is to divest something. That's one of the few. I think further to use buildings economically, we should make sure that the space is optimized, which is why I said earlier that the Awakening House, we should hold back on continuing to fully invest in restoring the interior of that until we define a better comprehensive use.
Thank you. Luke?
Yeah, so it is 2021, so, the way we operated 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago isn't probably the way we should operate today. And I know in terms of government, we adapt sometimes a little bit more conservatively, which I like. But it's about being efficient, effective, and appropriate, right? So if you're spending money on buildings that can be consolidated and you can have efficiency ratios be implemented, then those are dollars that we're contributing that could be allocated towards additional school, additional service, additional products. So I think that there's a lot on the table. And I'm not saying that of the 50-plus buildings, everything that's on the block to discuss. I do think that there's some efficiency ratios, very simple, low-hanging fruit that we can take advantage of, and we can allocate those funds to a better use position.
Thank you. Kimberly?
I think we have a great baseline of the buildings that we do own, but what I'd like to see is a more creative solution and a new approach to figuring out possibly privatizing some of these buildings with the town remaining, having ownership of the building, but there's a group, for instance, called the Landmark Trust that comes in and pays for the restoration of buildings, and it becomes a hospitality type of venue for people. So we've got a stalemate going on. We know what the buildings are. We know how much they cost. Some of them aren't in such, some of them need a lot of money. But let's bring in some private business, take government out of it, put private enterprises into it, but retain ownership of the buildings so that we can actually use them and fix them up, but have them put to good use. Feasibility is not that hard to figure out. It's a question of can we get people to agree on what these should be. But I'm very confident that all of these wonderful buildings can be put to very good use with private money and private interests involved.
Thank you. Keith?
I'm going to try and provide a specific answer because I don't think generalization helps in this regard. There's three key things. There's the library, there's the Vine Cottage, and there's Waveney House. I think the theater ought to be, if we can, get someone to go in there and restore it to being a movie theater. I like the idea of having a movie theater in downtown Canaan. It was great having my children be able to go there, and my wife and I going there, and I hope that we can manage to do that. And I think that we can if we create it. Vine Cottage, I think we have to be very careful about selling that. We use the parking lot for Vine Cottage all the time. The various town residents do. And if you lose that, and that becomes private, someone's going to build a fence around there, and that's going to change the parking situation downtown in not a good way. So I think we have to be very careful about what we do with Vine Cottage. Waveney House must be maintained and restored. It's one of our premier assets in New Canaan. They ought to put in the elevator. They ought to maintain it.
Thank you.
Not condition.
James?
Yeah, I think that with 55 or 57 buildings in town that are owned by this town, I think you can definitely find some efficiencies. One example might be the Vine Cottage, or some of the services that the town provides. There's no need to rent extra space. So, for instance, the Board of Education spends $350,000 or $400,000 a year renting space in a building when we have empty buildings sitting around. I don't think that makes sense. So if Vine Cottage needs a restoration or needs to be retrofitted, maybe there's an opportunity there for the town in 2 years to get their money back or save some money. Or Waveney House, why is that empty? Can that be put to some use so that our money is not sitting there just paying for maintenance? I think there's town services that could use different properties around town and net save us money.
Thank you. We'll move on to our fifth question, and Keith, you picked number 5, so we're going to start with you. What would you like to see change, if anything, in how the town council functions?
I think the town council has been functioning very well. In fact, I think I've noticed over the last few years it's become more collaborative. It's worked more closely with other government agencies within the town government. And I think they've come a long way. In my judgment, they were more divisive a few years ago. I think what's important is that when you're on a legislative body, like the town council, you have to be able to work collegially. You have to show respect for your colleagues. You have to express your views, listen to their views, and try and reach consensus. I don't think this is a job that calls for someone who's focused on a single issue or someone who's too strident. I think it takes someone who's going to research, like I'm used to researching, get to know all the facts, listen to every side, and then come to a reasonable decision about what's in the best long-term interest for your game.
Thank you. James?
I'm repeating the question again.
Sure. What would you like to see changed, if anything, in how the town council functions?
I think, as I said in the beginning, I think the town council should be a little more responsive, a little more accessible to the members of the community. I think that in some cases, so for instance, I kind of advocated for the start time issue. During that year-long process, I was not really approached by any members of the town council in terms of, well, why do you think that way? What is your perspective? I think that's something I, as a town council member, in such a divisive issue, would have done. I would have reached out. I would say, well, why do you think that way? Or kind of just over the telephone, ask those questions. I think that should take place if you want a town council that truly represents the members of the community and continues to do so. I think to some extent that's kind of been lost in the shuffle of politics.
Thank you. Penny?
We're actually functioning very, very well together. I think there's a lot of respect among all the members of the town council. We communicate when we can under FOIA rules, as principle. One of the things I found during COVID and all the virtual meetings is that I was able to see all 12 people's faces at the same time. And now I'm looking forward to having everybody in person. It's a greater level of interaction. But virtually, now we have more people attending our meetings, so we're hearing more from the public. And I think this is a wonderful opportunity for people not to have babysitters or interrupt their meals so that they can attend our meetings and interface back with us. And we've got a lot of new skills coming into our community from other communities Now, we still have to think about whether
Thank you.
should increase the budget.
Tom?
I think the town council has been functioning admirably. I'd like to praise John Engel for his leadership in this regard. To John Engel, if somebody has something to bring to the town council, the door is open. If you want to testify, and sometimes he goes too far with this, basically it's a wonderful trend that people are welcome here. We want to hear your story. Sometimes it may have the effect of suggesting to people that we have authority to resolve their issue, but if they understand the real intention, which is to give them a forum to voice their views to the community, we're proud to do that. I'm very pleased with the way things have gone at town council.
Thank you. Luke?
So I have the highest respect for everyone up here in the position. I think the town council's done an excellent job. I think open dialogue between those two bodies is very key and important to creating process and procedure that supports our initiatives. But I think that we should have people that are qualified, have expertise, and represent what the community actually entails. So, New Canaan isn't just schools, isn't just senior citizens, isn't just, people that have daycare before school and after school. I think we have to have a collective approach, and I think everyone should have a voice, and we should do it together.
Thank you. Kimberly?
I'd like to echo what Ruth and James are talking about, which is that, the town council does a great job, and I want to thank Tom and Penny for their service, and John Engel's done a wonderful job. But I'd like them to be a little bit more curious. You see a pot boiling, look at it, maybe turn the heat down, take it off, and take a look at what's in that pot, what's going on. So there's a lot of stuff going on in town, but I think we need a little bit more curiosity. I'd like to see the town council look into or try to focus on their legislative functions a little bit more, which are, I was reading the town charter, it says they can make bylaws, ordinances, establish boards and commissions. So I think that's kind of a green light to shaking things up a little bit, being a little bit more creative, thinking about things that we need a little bit more focus on. And I think with the consensus building of all of us up here, and we could build those bridges to be a little bit more creative in our solutions and go back to our original legislative function, which is the town council. In addition to cutting the budget, there's a whole bunch of other things.
Thank you. So we'll move on to our last question. It's an interesting question. You're encouraged to answer yes or no. And Luke, we'll start with you. You pick number 6. If you are not declared a winner at Tuesday's caucus, will you commit to supporting the winning Republican candidate in the November election? Luke? You do, actually. Technically you do, yes.
You did that plural, right?
Yes, candidates, yes.
Absolutely 100%. I've been a Republican since yes, no question. Yes.
Okay, it's a yes/no question. Okay, yes. So you don't have a minute. You have to answer the yes or no. Okay, thank you. Kimberly?
Yes.
Okay, Keith?
Yes.
James?
Yes, absolutely.
Ben?
Yes.
Of course.
Yes.
Okay, that's right. Okay, good. That completes our questions. We'll now move on to closing statements. There are 2 minutes each, and as you know, we'll go in reverse alphabetical order. So Penny, it means we start with you and we go that way.
Great, thank you. I'd like to thank the RTC for providing this platform for all the candidates to state their positions on various community issues and offer their talents and perspectives on service on the town council. As we have seen this evening, New Canaan faces a range of issues. There's always something to do, to research further, to deliberate on, to develop a creative, cost-effective, or operationally effective solution. I've always thought I've been identified with sound, balanced solutions, be they unique issues like the police station, or perennial concerns like balancing the budget, maintaining critical infrastructure, ensuring public safety, and enhancing education. Addressing them all will require developing a budget that delivers services at the level expected by our citizens, balanced and the impact on our taxes. We're operationally impressively under this administration and governing bodies, but we can encourage room for improvement.
by using today's methods as a foundation and springboard for analysis and opportunities for continued enhancement, will govern even better. And I welcome a few new members onto the Town Council to join us, me, and look forward to continuing great service in our wonderful town. I particularly look forward to welcoming many new people who have recently come to call New Canaan their own and hear their perspectives and new ideas. It's an honor and privilege to serve you and our community, crafting workable ways to protect the Canaan values, property values, aesthetic values, human values, and I would be grateful for your vote at the caucus next Tuesday. Thank you.
Thank you. James.
Well, I want to thank the RTC for sponsoring this event, and say I personally enjoyed hearing from all the candidates. However, I know as a potential voter, you have to differentiate between our respective positions. I think it's important to offer some contrast between us. I, along with some others, believe first and foremost that our role is to represent the voices of the community. And we need to refocus efforts to bring government back to the people by being accessible and responsive. We must also be ready to ask tough questions and make principled stands when representing people in our town. Some candidates may also think that growing divisiveness and vitriol in town is normal. While I believe that promoting greater transparency and accountability can only help to unify our town. Some may think that fiscal prudence is just a term to be used come election time and rubber stamp budgets year after year. Our town consistently has one of the highest per capita spends of the 169 towns in Connecticut. Yet we can't find any efficiencies. Perhaps most importantly, I see the town council as a protector of the community, as a last safeguard. They are entrusted with the responsibility to protect the interests of our community if Hartford or even our town bodies fail to do so. This is a responsibility that needs to be embraced by the town council. When it comes to truly controversial and discretionary issues that affect our town, the council should not simply say it's not our way. If you cannot comment or opine on the actions or proposals of any other town body, then respectfully, what is your lane? What is the town council's role? I want to join the town council to make a difference. I want to usher in a new spirit of true transparency and collaboration between town bodies and the community. I want to better the process and give back to a town that has given my family so much. I hope to get the opportunity to do so. Thank you.
Thank you. Keith.
Again, I want to thank the RTC for organizing this event and for all your hard work over the years. I feel the need to mention that I've been Republican my entire life, and at the risk of dating myself, I actually worked on the campaigns to elect Ronald Reagan as governor in California, and then again as president, and I remain a Reagan Republican. I am most fortunate to have been blessed with a wonderful family, good health, a high energy level, and a rewarding career. Giving back to the community is very important to me. It's been a big part of my life for 30 years. I hope to continue that as a member of the New Canaan Town Council. Apart from the incumbents, I think I have the most relevant experience. I've been a member of the New Canaan government for over 20 years. I worked with every first selectman since Dick Vaughn. I have been not only appointed by each of those first selectmen, but then I've been elected by the members of my commission to be chairman for each of those years. I've been involved in the largest clubs in this town, and I wasn't a caretaker president when I was president of those organizations. I drove an agenda. Most recently, I was president of the New Canaan Men's Club, which used to be known as the Senior Men's Club, the largest club in town, during the COVID crisis. Because I felt people were suffering from cabin fever, instead of just having one meeting a week, which already is a lot, I added 2 more Zoom meetings that we had every week. So that's an extra 100 meetings over the last year. We constantly interacted with the Human Services Group. We had specialists come in about COVID. Everyone was informed when vaccines came available. We did tutoring to how to our members to get the vaccine right away. So anyone who is familiar with that knows I will not be, was not a caretaker president of these clubs. I will not be a caretaker counselor. Thank you for your support.
Thank you. Kimberly.
I would like to thank the RTC for hosting this forum and providing this opportunity for you to get to know me a little bit better. I'm honored to be a candidate with my esteemed colleagues who sit up here with me this evening. For those just who came into the meeting or tuning in, my name is Kimberly Morton and I'm running for town council. As a town council person, my mission will be to ensure that our government remains responsive and accountable to taxpayers, students, local businesses, and elderly residents. My goal will be to protect property values, our excellent schools, downtown vibrancy, and our historic and natural landscapes. I plan to listen to all points of view and bring a renewed sense of fiscal responsibility to the council. If elected, I'd like to propose coffee with a council person so we can open up the communication between our government and our residents. I think it's a win-win for both sides and will forge stronger bonds between the community and our council. Since declaring my candidacy, I've spoken with so many of you and listened and learned what's on your mind and what your priorities are. It's been a humbling experience and one that I truly treasure. I've devoted my life to helping others, a value instilled in me by my parents, and one that I have honored in my career as a mother and now as I volunteer for our town. I would be honored to have your support and your vote at the Republican caucus on July 20th and in November. You can read more about me and follow me on my Facebook and Instagram pages, Kimberly Morton from New Canaan. You can also reach out to me at kimberlymorton06840@gmail.com. Thank you.
Thank you. Luke.
Excellent job. And we share a lot of the same views as James and I. Start thanking everybody for the opportunity to give a presentation tonight. We had COVID. It was very tough for everyone in this room, all families, all businesses. And I believe now is the time to appoint the appropriate town council that not only represents the identity and community that lives in this town, because it is slightly changing. There are people coming from various areas who are pushing here, maybe accelerating their move. They're excited or want to be part of this. And I think now is the time to revitalize downtown New Canaan, to make sure that the businesses are in a position to be very successful. Make sure the Board of Ed has the proper funding. Make sure the sports programs are well funded, and making this a destination. I'm excited for the opportunity. I appreciate your time. And if I was voted town council, I would represent the community as a whole, every voice, and I would work tirelessly and effortlessly in support of what would be best for everyone.
Thank you. Tom.
Yeah, first, Luke, you didn't say it right out, but I know your point. We need young people on the council. Yeah. We do. We need young energy, and we will appreciate it when you bring it. I did want to respond to something that James said about transparency. James, you can be assured that every email you wrote, every study you cited, I studied, I analyzed, I looked at it, I thought about it, and I formed my opinion. So we do listen, whether or not we're free at liberty under the Freedom of Information Act to conduct email dialogue out in the public eye is another matter. But we do listen and we work like crazy. I work like crazy on the town council. I think I'm on more committees than anybody else. I'm a lawyer. I analyze every piece of, the legal information that comes by. I've developed, I studied the revaluation process and wrote an article about it. I don't know. That was painful. I work like crazy, and I also play well with others. So we do have some public debates, but we have tremendous warmth and respect among town council members on a personal level. But a more specific reason to vote for me, I've been tirelessly supportive of the Board of Education and Dr. Lussey. God forbid we ever lose this man as the leader of our children, the education of our children. Not because I have kids in school, I no longer do. I have no skin in this game. It's just that because I got closer to the understanding, as I got closer to the understanding of what the secret sauce is that drives the success of our schools, I had to get into it, and I wanted to learn more. I think it's amazing. Attending more than 50 Board of Education meetings, reading thousands of pages of material to understand better, going through, sitting in Rich Townsend's living room probably 8 to 10 times.
Thank you, Tom. So that concludes the town council portion of our forum. Why don't we give all the candidates a hand? And we'll take a 10-minute recess, and then we'll convene the Board of Education portion. Yeah, I know. Good.
Okay, I think we're going to get started. Thank you, everyone. We're going to move on to the Board of Education portion of our forum, and our format is going to be similar to what we've done in the previous two. So we will start with 1-minute introductions, and we'll go alphabetically. Then we'll move on to questions, and then the closing. So the alphabetically. So Hugo, we're going to start with you.
Thank you. First off, it's so great to see so many beautiful smiling faces unadorned tonight. I'm Hugo Ellis. I moved to Canaan 11 years ago. The lady over there in the corner. I've got 3 little girls. I've got a 2-year-old, I've got a 5-year-old, I've got a 7-year-old between Finland Nursery and West School. Some of you know my story. Some of you don't. Unfortunately, came here when I was 3 years old. My wife is Italian. She was born here in Yonkers. Her parents did literally come over here on a boat, though. And they taught us a few things when they came over. They came over with the American dream, chasing that dream like most immigrants in the 80s. And they instilled in us some pretty good values. One of those values, work hard, hold yourself accountable. Number 2, save $1. Spend $1, save 2. Saran wrap all your furniture and have 2 kitchens. And the last, probably most important one, is get yourself the best possible education.
Thank you. Dan.
Hi, my name is Dan Bennett. I've been in town with my wife for a little over 7 years. We have 3 boys, 8, 6, and almost 5. They go to South School, and my youngest goes to Collartime, where all the kids went. The reason we moved to town is we were looking for a great community with an excellent public school system to raise our family. And I would say in New Canaan we found that. The community is amazing, and the schools have been excellent. One of the best things about the town is you have active and engaged parents in their kids' lives, whether it's extracurricular activities, sports, anything, you see people really involved. And I think that's one of the things that I'm excited about this kind of running for this volunteer opportunity, is to bring more parents, especially some elementary age parents, to the board, bring some new voices to the board, and really try to help the kids achieve the best academic outcomes possible.
Thank you. Philip.
Hi, I'm Phil Hogan. I've lived in town for 5.5 years. I've got 4 kids in the school system. My daughter Holly is on her way to Saks next year. My son Casey's a rising 3rd grader. My son Charlie's a rising 1st grader. And my son Kyle is doing a PG year at Play. I think people in town probably know me best as the volunteer coach for their son's or daughter's sports team, whether it's baseball, softball, soccer, or flag football. If you've got an elementary school son or daughter who plays sports, chances are we probably cross paths. I'm running for the Board of Ed because I love the idea of helping kids maximize their abilities in the classroom and not just on the athletic field, because I think the board desperately needs elementary school representation on it, because I think the best boards are full of independent, free thinkers with no agendas, and that's exactly what I am. I'd also like to take this time to thank all the parents for their hard work during COVID. You're going to hear a lot of sort of victory laps up here, and rightfully so in a lot of instances, but I think we all know that parents are the real heroes of the story. Thank you.
Thank you. Jessica.
Good evening. I appreciate the occasion to speak tonight. My name is Jessica Hutter, and I'm honored to have the opportunity to run for the Canaan Board of Education. My husband and I have lived in New Canaan for 7 years with our 2 children, Charlotte, who is entering 6th grade at Saks, and William, who will be entering 3rd grade at South after attending East for K-2. Being meaningfully involved in our community is extremely important to me, and evidenced by the myriad groups I am or have been involved with. I have served on the boards of the Eastville PTC for the past 2 years as president and as treasurer for the 2 years prior, Young Women's League of New Canaan, and the Newcomers Club of New Canaan. I am currently on the boards of the New Canaan Football Club and the New Canaan Field Club. I've attended nearly all of the Board of Ed meetings over the last 2+ years, as well as participated in the last 4 budget cycles of both the Board of Finance and Town Council. I am well versed in the process of how our town works and what it takes to get things done. I am proud of our schools and look forward to being an experienced, knowledgeable, responsible, caring partner for parents and the school administration.
Thank you.
Lift up your mics so everybody in the room can hear.
Sorry.
My name is Pat O'Connell, and thank you for having me here tonight. I recently filled a vacancy on the New Canaan Board of Education due to a former member moving out of town, and I'm now running a 2-year board seat. Our schools are a critical part of what makes New Canaan a tremendous community. I went to the New Canaan public school system. I'm one of 6 children, all of whom are New Canaan High graduates. I moved back to New Canaan with my wife, Robin, in 2002, and a major reason was New Canaan public schools. We have 4 children of our own. They've all gone to New Canaan public schools, 3 who have graduated from the high school thus far. In addition to my own kids, though, I have a sister who's a teacher in the school system. I have several nieces and nephews who graduated from Canaan High, plus some who will still be in the school system next year, ranging from grammar school through high school. I've been involved in numerous town organizations in my time here, as well as various activities within the school system. I'd also highlight, I think I can utilize some of my professional experience, which has predominantly been in financial services, to assist in finding ways to streamline costs, and I think it equips me to work with different groups who have different interests. Again, I want to thank you for having me here this evening, and I appreciate your consideration.
Thank you. Katrina.
Good evening. Thank you. I'm Katrina Parkhill, and I've lived in New Canaan for 16 years with my husband and 3 children who will enter 7th, 10th, and 11th grades this fall. I'm proud to be here tonight as a current member of our Board of Education. I was elected to the BOE 4 years ago and served the role of board chair for the past 2 years. Our town and schools have recently faced some of the greatest public health challenges in our history. And together with our school administration, I have worked continuously through COVID in support of opening our schools to all of our students this past year. My years on the BOE were preceded by a decade of volunteerism and leadership in our town, including as PTC president of West School and board level positions at our nursery school, New Canaan Winter Club, Newcomers Club, and my church. Prior to moving to New Canaan, I spent a decade working in the healthcare industry as a management consultant and most recently in brand management advisor. As a dedicated volunteer and proven leader with deep knowledge of our school, I would be honored to continue my service.
Thank you. Jennifer.
I'd like to thank the RTC for having us this evening. I moved to New Canaan in 1983. My parents moved us here because of the schools. I graduated from New Canaan High School and moved back with my husband Tom in 1998. We have 4 children, 3 of whom have graduated from the Canaan Public Schools and 1 will be a rising junior in the fall. I love this town. I've always been very engaged in the schools and the community. I was elected to serve on the Board of Ed in 2013 and was elected again in 2017. I've served on the communication committee for both terms, been the board secretary and a member of the board executive committee for 5+ years. Most recently, I was a member of the COVID reopening committee. We met throughout the pandemic to ensure that our administrators, teachers, and staff were being supported, and then to ensure that the children in New Canaan were safe and having an enriched educational experience, whether it was remote, hybrid, or in person. I offer 7 years of board experience, commitment, leadership to the board, and I'm hoping to continue serving our community and students.
Thank you. Julie.
Hi, my name is Julie Toll. I've lived here in New Canaan for over 5 years. I believe New Canaan is the greatest town in America. I love volunteering for the town I love. Within the past 5 years, I've served various positions for New Canaan Newcomers Club, ultimately elected president. I teach Sunday school at St. Mark's. I volunteered for various projects at the Historical Society of New Canaan, and in the fall I'll be joining the West PTC. My husband Peter and I have 2 children, 4 and 5. I also have 3 stepchildren, 16, 20, and 22, one of which is special ed. I have a lot of skin in the game. My children will be in the school system for the next 13 years. I'm invested in our schools. I'm committed to this role. And I'd be honored to serve New Canaan on the Board of Education.
Thank you. Okay, that concludes our introductory remarks. We'll move on to the question and answer. Patrick, you picked number 1, so we're gonna start with you. This looks like a 2-part question. The first part is, what are the main challenges facing the Board of Ed today? And then the second part is, what would you like to see change, if anything, in how the Board of Ed functions? And you have 1 minute.
Okay, I think first of all, in terms of to continue on, the first answer would be to continue on the success that this continued Board of Ed has had over the past year during the COVID pandemic. I think New Canaan has set the gold standard, both regionally as well as nationally, in terms of how to handle something, how to work as a group, and how to accomplish it in an admirable way. In terms of what I would improve upon, I think it's always good to scrutinize things, always good to look at what you can streamline costs, always looking to potentially save taxpayer dollars through the budget.
Thank you. Katrina.
Can you repeat the question?
Sure. First part is, what are the main challenges facing the Board of Ed today? And then the second part is, what would you like to see change, if anything, in how the Board of Ed functions?
So I would say the last 16 months have been extremely challenging, and we've faced unprecedented challenges we never could have imagined. So I think as we come out of the pandemic, we need to step back and ask ourselves, what worked well, what do we want to keep, what do we want to change, and really be thoughtful about how we want to proceed. There's inordinate change in technology, changes in the way we instructed our kids, on the way we utilize our buildings. So I think there's just so much to really think about and look back. As far as change, I think the board is functioning exceptionally well. I would say, given our focus the last 16 months has been on COVID and supporting our kids and keeping them in school, I think we have to think about, getting back to some of the routine work, governance, looking at our policies. That's something that was on hold for a little while, and really thinking about how we can continue to support our kids' emotional and.
Thank you. Jennifer?
So sorry, can you repeat the question one more time?
Sure. What are the main challenges facing the Board of Ed today? And what would you like to see change, if anything, in how the Board of Ed functions?
There are many challenges. The one that is top of my head is some of the curriculum things that we're seeing coming down from the state. It's definitely a challenge, and we are always keeping a pulse on what's happening in Harvard with curriculum, but I do think that we, as a board, it's our policy that the superintendent, we have fabulous people that write our curriculum. We don't just take the curriculum from the state, we write our own curriculum. And as a board, we take stands if we don't like what is written in the curriculum. We ask for presentations, we ask to be able to have input. If something comes up and we don't approve it, then it doesn't get approved. And I just think that that's, considering the trailblazers that's on every second. So I feel like that is most likely going to be one of the big things that we face the next year or so. And as far as changing, I think we're doing a great job with that.
Okay, thank you. Julie?
I agree with Jen. I believe that curriculum is the biggest issue. There seems to be a misconception about the meaning of curriculum oversight. It's the board's duty at law to review and then accept or reject the curriculum. The board is not there to write the curriculum. It is to oversee the curriculum with input from our community. I'm surprised to learn we currently don't have a curriculum committee. The Board of Ed's job is to approve what the administration recommends. The administration is hired to recommend, and the Board of Ed is elected to approve. I don't see harm in having a more in-depth understanding of how curriculum is created. As a community, we should be able to weigh in on how these issues are addressed.
Thank you. Hugo?
I'm going to have to echo also on the curriculum piece. We all moved to New Canaan because, at least I moved to New Canaan because I felt that this conservative enclave and otherwise relatively or extremely liberal state seems to be moving even further in that direction. I feel that we have an obligation to our community, to our kids, to essentially be able to filter and protect them from some of the curriculum that is coming down the pike. What I would change is have greater transparency. Some of the things that I've noticed over the last year, and a very challenging year with young kids in the school system, and going through a very challenging year, I think the administration did a great job. I just feel that there was an opportunity for better communication, better transparency, and better collaboration between the community. And we noticed that even as we were canvassing town and asking people questions about what they were worried about, curriculum is always number one, but also transparency, just not really knowing what's going on next.
Okay, thank you. Dan?
I think some of the main challenges facing the board heading into next year is the implementation of the start time rollout. I think there's still a lot of concerned parents that feel like their issues have not necessarily been addressed. And it seems like we're going down that road post-referendum, but I think the board can engage with the community better and really hear things out, and then also provide more active oversight of the administration to deal with the rollout in the most appropriate manner. Another issue that's going to be important is obviously keeping our schools open for in-person learning for all kids, ideally with a mask optional construct, especially for young kids that are learning to read, learning to speak, and I think ultimately that's a parent's choice. And then pushing back on Hartford overreach, whether it's on curriculum, course regionalization, or other items. I think we need a strong board that represents the community, represents parents, and listens to those concerns and pushes back with a loud voice where necessary.
Okay, thank you. Philip?
Has anyone talked about curriculum yet? I don't want to belabor the point, but first and foremost, we need to establish a curriculum committee, and we need to do it right now. That's an absolute no-brainer. You don't need to be an expert in education to have an opinion on what kids get taught. That's absolutely ridiculous. Do I want to be the one writing the curriculum? Not a chance. But do I want eyes and ears on the people that do write it? Absolutely. That's called oversight. That's smart. That benefits New Canaan parents and the administration. And that's exactly the point of having a school board, to set policy, project New Canaan values, and make sure they're implemented. I moved here because I thought our board was doing stuff like this. I'm frankly kind of shocked that they're not. The bottom line is that indoctrination in our public and private schools has become a major issue nationwide. Families are literally fleeing New York City every day because of it and settling here and in other adjacent areas. These families and all New Canaan families need to know if critical race theory and other divisive curricula is coming to their schools and when it's coming. They deserve to know.
Okay, thank you. Jessica.
Well, I think as other people said, I think the main challenge for the Board of Ed in this upcoming year is getting back to normal post-COVID. Having 2 kids home this past year, actually they weren't home, they were in school every day, but dealing with the emotional heaviness of the year with them was a lot. So I think getting back to making sure our kids are staying in school, focusing on their emotional well-being, and that they are continuing to get the exemplary education that New Canaan is known for. In terms of what to change, to be honest, I don't think our Board of Ed or our schools are broken. I think we can move forward and continue to grow, but I have a hard time sitting here criticizing the job that they did when my kids went to school 90+% of the days this year, when I have relatives who saw the inside of the school for only 20. So again, I think the focus should be on moving forward, not necessarily fixing.
Okay, thank you. We'll now move on to our second question, and I believe, Jessica, you picked number 2. Interesting what question number 2 is. I think some of you may have anticipated this. Where do you stand on the present hands-off approach by the Board of Ed on curriculum? For instance, should the board take an active part, the Board of Ed take an active part in overseeing the curriculum process? Jessica.
I guess I would maybe start by saying I don't totally agree with the question because I don't believe that the Board of Education is hands-off with our curriculum. There is a curriculum committee that is led by Dr. Lutzy and his subject matter experts. They are the ones that are best equipped to write the curriculum. They do that based on their knowledge of the classroom. They don't take what the state tells them and just present it. From my knowledge of attending Board of Ed meetings over the last couple of years, the Board of Ed doesn't like what's in a curriculum, they won't approve it. So there is oversight, there is review. This concept that the Board of Education just sits back and rubber stamps the curriculum is not true, and I think that they will continue to act in the best interest of our children.
Okay, all right, thank you. Patrick.
Okay, yeah, I mean, similarly, like we said before, like, I'm not an expert on curriculum, but what I would want to see is experts be involved. And from my understanding, the Curriculum Leadership Council does just that very thing and has been different constituencies represented. I mentioned before, my sister's a teacher in town. I teach special needs at the high school, and I talk to her about the curriculum issues all the time. And it seems to me what I have been impressed with is how willingness there is to evolve and how they're not something that's set forever. And if there are changes that need to be made, that things will be changed and things will be addressed. So again, I love the idea of having experts involved, and I love the idea of continuing to be able to evolve as a school.
Thank you. Katrina.
I agree. We are not hands-off on our curriculum. We're very involved. We do delegate, as per policy, curriculum oversight to our superintendent. That's been a long-standing policy that's worked very well for our community and for our students. The way the Curriculum Leadership Council is comprised of teachers and subject matter experts. We have almost 90% of our teachers, or 97% of our teachers have master's degrees and higher. And we have an extremely qualified group of teachers working in our district. And we look to them to do the good work of understanding. They know our kids, they understand what they need and what is necessary to teach them and to prepare them for whatever's next. So as a board and as a board member, we spend hours listening and reviewing curriculum. It develops, it comes to us in a certain stage, and we provide feedback and input. And it's an iterative process until we approve it or decide to change it. So.
Thank you. Jennifer.
I also do not agree with the question, or at least the way it was stated. We are not hands-off on our curriculum. At one point, I'm not going to repeat everything that's been said, because we're not hands-off. One important part is that we teach our kids how to think. We do not teach them what to think. We are not taking, materials from the state or from a book and just giving it to our kids. We have experts that are reviewing, we're going through everything, and then it is presented to us. As far as the transparency piece, we have board meetings, twice a month. We have presentations year-round regarding curriculum. We have, recently we had a health presentation. We've had history recently. I'm just trying to think off the top of my head, but these teachers and experts spend hours putting these presentations together. They are on the website. I don't really agree with the transparency piece either, but I think that look at the stats of our schools and how well we're doing in the state of Connecticut and the nation.
Thank you. Julie.
I talked about curriculum in my last answer a lot. But I do feel like we could use input from our community with regards to the curriculum. In New Canaan, we all have strong family values. And some of what we teach is at home, at the bigger school. And we want to make sure that that coincides and works with what the teachers are teaching in our children's school.
Thank you. Hugo.
Yeah, a couple things. I think that I agree. We did a great job. We have amazing schools. They're among the best in the state, among the best in the country. Competitively, there are other schools in the area that are as good. In some ways, I don't know that they're better, but I know that there are towns that have an actual curriculum committee. My understanding is we didn't. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm not sure. I didn't know that we had that. There are things when you read through the goals and objectives 2021, 2022, their words are really vague. And again, I don't know if that's to appease the state, but as far as transparency and collaboration goes, I just like to see a little bit more of that. As a parent, I am concerned. And I think that, as has been said, I think we teach academics, not values and beliefs. I agree, teach people how to think, teach our kids how to think. But I'd like a little bit more collaboration personally.
Thank you. Dan.
I think the board should have an active and engaged oversight function when it comes to curriculum. And I think the board voted 8-1 to delegate that responsibility to the administration. I'm not saying there's no involvement of the board in reviewing what the administration comes back with, but there are no board members on the Curriculum Leadership Council. And there is no board-level curriculum committee or subcommittee, and I think that that is a problem. The board is not there to write the curriculum. They aren't there to give teachers lessons plans, but they are there to represent the taxpayer, the community, the parents, and the students as the elected voice that reviews curriculum, ensures that it is aligns with the values of this town, and it also ensures that parents understand exactly what is coming through the curriculum, whether existing or changes. I think it's important that parents have access to and clearly can understand what their children are being taught.
Thank you. Philip. Yeah, I think Dan's hitting the nail on the head. This is an oversight issue. You can have a curriculum committee, and you can really have one that actually has some teeth and is active in doing things. I'm just not sure what's being set up here is paints an accurate picture of what's going on. But people have talked about this committee. I don't know that it's so much led by Dr. Lutzy as it really is Dr. Lutzy. And he's obviously a really, really bright guy. He's done a great job. He's a Clemson guy. I'm a BC guy. I can't wait to get to know him. There's a rivalry there. But I just think that more parental involvement would be suited. It would suit all of us better.
Okay. All right. Thank you. We'll move on to our third question. And Jennifer, you number 3. Okay, we'll start with you. The Board of Ed's budget represents 2/3 of property taxes and town spending. What measures would you consider proposing to ensure that the quality of education continues while focusing more oversight on spending to realize the maximum benefit with the most cost-effective measures?
So the budget process, as everybody knows, that's on the boards, is a very, very long process. I feel like once we approve the budget, we're starting the budget for the following year. There's an immense amount of work to tell the business putting these budgets together. As a board member, our resource committee looks over our budgets every month. Then they come to us. So we have a very close hand on the budgets. We always look to be fiscally responsible. The most important thing is that our kids are getting the best education possible. I actually was just reading something over today, and it said, New Canaan, it was like a headline in the advertiser talking about ranking us, one of the top in the state is regarding our education and scores, but yet number 8 in 10 towns for people cost. So we really, really try to be cost efficient in our spending, and again, always having in mind our kids. We've done a lot of fiscally responsible things through the years that have saved the towns millions of dollars. And
okay, thank you. Julie.
The current board has done a great job with the budget. I'd like to continue that by making sure every dollar spent goes to our classroom. Current board has also done a great job in sourcing in certain areas to save money. I'd like to continue to think outside of the box to keep costs down and look for opportunities to collaborate and create efficiency.
Thank you. Hugo.
Yeah, look, we all moved here because of the schools, and the schools are what brought us together, which is what makes the community at the end of the day. 70% of the budget, it's probably the most powerful board of any kind, right? You want to lead educations, they cost money. That said, taxes are going up in state and continue to go up, and we're going to need to be more mindful of where we put those dollars. I'm a financial planner. That's what I do on a day-to-day basis. Help people understand, clear their objectives, understand what the easiest path and the quickest path to get there is, and the most efficient path. And looking through the budget on a regular basis, having obviously more oversight into the budget and understanding, like Julie said, making sure that the money is actually going to educating our kids academically, putting money into the sports like we have been, but being really mindful of where that money is going, because my understanding has gone up 4.2% over the last 20 years, which is 1.62. Not saying we need to pull back yet. That's really hard to do, right? Once you spend the money, it's hard to pull back. But I think we need to be really critical going forward.
Thank you. Dan.
Listen, we have best-in-class schools, and that's why people move here. That's why they live here. That's why they raise their kids here. And our school system is one of our biggest assets, and we need to invest in it. I think our budget would indicate that we do. I do think that there can be improvements to the process of budget review and analysis, and I actually think the current board should be given more time with the budgets and more time to have real substantive oversight of the administration, more time to have Q&A back and forth, go through line items, go through increased expenditures, and really drill down on where things are going higher and where things can be cut and be more efficient. Ultimately, it's about delivering the most money that reaches the kids in the classroom. So dollars that go there, I think the board should continue to focus on. Dollars that go to increase and a bigger administration is something that I think we should look to dial back.
Thank you. Philip.
Yeah, I think this board has done a pretty good job with the budget. I think it's in pretty good shape from what I understand. My goal, if I'm on the board, will always be to make sure that as much money gets to the classroom as possible, because that's where it needs to go. If there's stuff away from the classrooms that we can trim and save taxpayers some money, then great. And if there's not, so be it. I'm a huge believer in fiscal responsibility and common sense. When I was a teenager, my parents told me to be very careful when you're spending other people's money. And I've lived that way my entire life as an adult. And also point out, James Yao, I had not heard this before, but he was talking about a lot of these buildings in town that, Waveney, for instance, that are just a bunch of empty rooms in there, and that seems like a pretty good place to start if we're looking for a place to save money.
Okay, thank you. Jessica.
So I think this is one where we all might actually agree, which is that our schools are the highest valued asset that this town has. So it brings people here, it's what brings people here. If anyone has actually attended a Board of Ed meeting or listened to one of Dr. Lutzie's budget presentations that he gives to all of the schools, you will hear him say that education is first and foremost a people business. So that is why the majority of the Board of Ed budget goes to pay teacher salaries, pay benefits. So then you're left with a smaller chunk, right, and making sure that that money is being used efficiently, as everyone said, to make sure it's going back into the classroom, not rubber stamping it, but looking line by line, making sure you're being responsible and finding the efficiency in every unit.
Thank you. Patrick.
All right. Again, going number 7, I feel like there's not too many other things I can come up with here, but again, yeah, you have to prioritize. Obviously, top priority, first and foremost, is the best possible experience for kids in the system. But like any budget, there tends to be room for line by line areas can be improved upon. And I do agree totally to the point that the top priority has got to be the classroom and that being there for the kids. But it is the responsibility of the board to scrutinize different items that can be improved upon and save costs, improve the budget year after year.
Thank you. Katrina.
As Jeff said, teachers are our greatest investment. It's the greatest value we provide. They're the ones working with our kids. Our budget, I'm proud of our budget and the work that we've done on our budget in recent years. We've been under inflation repeatedly for the last number of years. I'd like to also talk about our process. It's in depth. We have 16 meetings with town boards and groups. We have internal meetings as a resource committee. We look at every part of the budget, and there are many opportunities to ask questions town. We have to work with the town bodies. We need approval. And I think that's something we've worked really hard on the last couple of years, and we have great relationships. We work closely with Tom Butterworth, the education liaison, and comes to a lot of our meetings. And a lot of it's the back and forth, and ultimately we may disagree. And that's what the goal is, to work together with the town to achieve a reasonable budget that will support what we need to maintain the excellent education that we provide to our students every year.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on to our next question. And Hugo, I think you picked number 4. We'll start with you. In general, within our schools, what are your thoughts on mask-wearing mandates? For instance, do you feel they should be worn during both indoors and outdoor activities?
I think it's up to the parents. At the end of the day, I'm conservative to the core. I believe that it's not a decision the school board should be making. I think the decision we make is to leave it to the parents. Everybody's got their own story. Everybody has their own issues. If you want to wear a mask, wear a mask. If you don't want to wear a mask, don't wear a mask. I'm pretty strongly about that.
Thank you. Dan?
I think the current board and the administration did a really good job of keeping the kids in school last year for in-person learning, and I think that was good. I think we're at a different point now when we're heading into next year, and I think the kids bore a lot of the burden last year of the COVID impact, including wearing masks for an entire year. And I think the data is out now, and they're low risk, right? So I do think it is a parent's choice to send their kids. I don't think that the board should be dictated to by Hartford as to how the schools should be open and operating. And I hope that a strong board will listen to the community, hear parents' concerns, and ultimately get to a mask optional outcome for the entire school year.
Thank you. Philip?
Yeah, I mean, to me, this is a parental decision, just like these guys have said, plain and simple. I would never tell another parent to take a mask off their child if they were worried or scared about COVID or something else. It's just not my place to do that and be that guy. But I expect that same courtesy to be extended to me. I don't think this is Governor Lamont's decision or the superintendent's decision. I think it's our decision as parents, no one else's. Mask option with me is pretty much the only way forward from here. I just don't see another way. I also want to mention that other school boards from neighboring towns have sent letters to Governor Lamont, letting him know how their parents and communities feel in the hopes that they can influence his ultimate decision. Our current board has not done that thing, to my knowledge. We've deferred to our superintendent. In fact, I think there's a few board members that actually had no idea that elementary school children were actually in masks on, which is kind of astounding. But bigger picture, I really think New Canaan ought to be a leader on this issue rather than a follower. I think people are kind of fed up, and I think it's time to sort of change our posture and start being a little bit proactive.
Thank you. Jessica?
Yeah, I mean, I think we can all agree that the ideal situation is for our kids to be in school mask-free, seeing each other's faces, being able, especially for little kids, it's so important. I do think, though, that we can kind of look to how Dr. Lefty's administration handled the beginning of COVID to say that he is not going to just follow blindly what Hartford tells him to do. Right? If you remember, they were told, all schools were told to close for 2 weeks. He closed for 1 day and had our kids up and learning remote. So I think we just need to remember that the administration and the Board of Education has proven that they act in the best interest of our children to keep them in school. And I have no doubt that they will continue to do that.
Okay. Thank you. Patrick?
Yeah, similarly, I mean, I think clearly the best case scenario is everyone in school without masks. However, I would also defer to parents. If someone wants to wear a mask, by all means, do so. I think the important point, though, is that I think the board has to be adaptable, and things can change immediately with some of this COVID news. And I do credit the board last year for exactly what you're saying, where, I mean, there were decisions made quickly and things happen quickly. So between now and the start of school, a number of different things could happen with the virus. And I just think as long as you're very hands-on and can adapt quickly and can continue to evolve quickly, that should be the best solution for all of our kids.
Okay. Thank you. Katrina?
I agree with mask optional policy. I think it's right. I think it's what we should be doing. That said, we have to advocate for local control and local decision making, and right now that's unclear. I will say that as board chair, I participate on a board chair call. It was weekly for a while, and now it's dropped off a little bit this summer. But I am communicating with other board chairs and understanding what other boards' positions are on this. I think there's a lot of support for mask optional. So, continue to be engaged, we continue to follow the details and track what's happening, and are ready to push harder. But as Jess said, we will make the decisions at the right time for our kids. and we will always support the best interest of their health and safety.
Thank you. Jennifer.
Again, there's not a lot to say at this point because I agree with everybody. I think that masks should be optional. I hope that we do not have no masks at all next year. As you know, masks were a huge COVID strategy and what enabled us to stay open actually this year. And just to Jess's point, when the state said that we had to be closed for 2 weeks and Dr. Lexi started school within 24 hours of remote learning, we had to basically fight to get our kids that credit for those school days because he thought it was so important to get our kids in school. So believe me, like all we want is keep these kids in school. So I don't want them to wear masks, but right now, all of our metrics are really good. The Canaan Health Department has done an amazing job with the vaccine program, and I can't imagine, but if the time came and it's like closing schools or wearing masks, I think we have to make a tough call because the most important thing is those kids are safe and they're in school. But I do not think that will happen, and I'm all in for advocating for local control and not having masks.
Thank you. Julie.
Well, the time is coming because school starts in about a month. And I feel that it should absolutely be the parent's decision to mask or unmask their child. Masks can save lives, but they can also do harm. In April, my 5-year-old son came to me and said, "Mom, I can't breathe. He has a terrible pollen allergy, and pollen had gotten into his mask. When he put his mask on, he was breathing the pollen in. When he took his mask off, his lips were blue, and I could see the stridor in his chest. We went to the emergency room. He had an oxygen level of 92%. Upon discharge, we were given steroids and an inhaler, and the school worked with us and our doctor, and the conclusion was he should not wear a mask in school. As a parent, and with the help of medical experts, we weighed the pros and cons, and in my son's case, it was clear, no mask. We should listen to experts and also be able to, as a parent and as a district, make the best decision for our children."
Thank you. We'll move on to our next question, and Philip, I think you picked number 5. What is your position regarding the early start times for elementary schools in New Canaan? And would you care to compare our start times to other towns in the state?
Yeah, I mean, as a South parent, I really didn't have a dog in the fight. My kids were on the bus at 7:45, so the difference for us was going to be like 15 or 20 minutes, so pretty negligible. What I will say and what I've heard from many East and West parents is that they think the process was very poorly handled. The communication from the board and the PTCs was lacking. The referendum felt rushed. The time to vote was inconvenient for elementary school parents. And the actual wording was inconvenient. A lot of people didn't even know what they were voting for. What personally bothered me most about the whole ordeal actually was the kind of the demonization of people who didn't support these changes. I bring up James again. James led the fight against the start time changes, and I've gotten to know him over the last few weeks out on the campaign trail, and he's about the nicest guy you'll ever meet. Literally, all the guy wanted was to spend some extra time with his kids early in the morning before he went to work, and he was lambasted for it. So I just think that whole start time debate really brought out the worst in a lot of people, and I think a lot of people owe James an apology, and I think he deserved a lot better.
Thank you. Jessica.
So this is definitely one where, there's very strong emotions on both sides of it. For me personally, what time school started, it was tell me what time school starts and I'll get my kid there. I didn't have a huge dog in this fight. I will say that I remember when my daughter was in 2nd grade, so 4 years ago, sitting in a PTC presentation, hearing about the start time change. So it was researched, it was discussed. This has been going on for 4 years. This was not something that was, just all of a sudden, oh, let's decide to move the start times an hour earlier. There were meetings, there were focus groups, all that the public had the ability to attend. And I'd also like to say, throughout all of it, it was promised that they would keep working to get closer to 8 o'clock. And if anyone watched the last Board of Ed meeting, Dr. Lutzy got 8 o'clock for the elementary school kids. So he's coming through on his promises. But like I said, for me, it's...
Thank you. Patrick.
Yeah, I mean, again, it was a topic that was discussed in our household all the time, just like, and not a lot of agreement on it all the way around. I think that the most important things for me is highlighted, just like, hey, as long as there is a process that does go through it, and they did look at this for 4 years, again, but at the same time, I feel like the most important takeaway would be, hey, listen, if it's not working with these new proposed changes and it's not implemented smoothly, then fix it. And if that's if the board can be nimble enough to continue to try to work as a community and work with the town council, then hopefully we can get something that appeals to everybody involved. But I think, again, I always sort of thought that when looking at the outside looking in, there was a process. There was a lot of study. There was a lot of decisions that had to be made, and there was a lot of homework that went into it. But again, it doesn't work going forward. By all means, always do.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Trina.
Thank you. I'll speak to the process. I've been involved with it, I think, almost since my first year on the board 4 years ago. And it was a lengthy process. It was challenging. We knew that we were dealing with a highly emotional issue with very wide set of opinions across our town. And, that's why we talked about it in 30 meetings, and why we, after the COVID, sort of the focus on COVID started to lighten a little bit, we stepped back and said, let's ask ourselves, are we still making the right decision? Let's look at everything again one more time. And we did that. And the board ultimately made a decision, and it was not made lightly. It's an emotional topic. I think we all can, on the board say that even our own families were not necessarily in agreement. Kids want what they want, or they like change, or they don't want change. So I think we've taken a very thoughtful approach on a very challenging issue, and we spent a lot of time listening to a lot of people, and I myself responded to hundreds of emails thanking people for their input, and it was with all of that input and listening and the research that we were able to make.
Thank you. Jennifer?
I've worked on this topic for a very long time, since 2017. At least 30 board of ed meetings, 2 workshops, 2 public hearings, read at least 700 emails. And I'd like to say we read all the emails. We can't respond to the emails, but we read all the emails. We take everyone's input. I mean, this decision was so tough because we knew we could make everybody happy. I mean, my kids didn't want it, honestly, until actually they started being asleep in the steering wheel. But anyway, you know what? It was a tough decision, and we knew everyone would be happy. But ultimately, we went with the experts, with the science. I mean, not everyone has it. Everyone's so different. But the kids with anxiety, depression, sleep is so incredibly important in this formation years. And honestly, it's a really big deal when the kids get older. And I'm so happy we were able to find a compromise. We are listening. We got to 8 o'clock. It's just a great example of how we really work as a team, and we really are trying to do the best for our community.
Julie.
I feel like that the process could have been handled better. Board of Ed didn't adequately address concerns from elementary age students. They also did not ask for input from preschool directors. We need to be more engaged moving forward, perhaps forming an implementation committee. We need to have more discussions before this gets rolled out. Heard from people in the community that communication is a real concern. We need to all work together to find solutions that make sense.
Thank you. Hugo.
Yeah, I do. So I heard this has been going on for a number of years from various constituents. I personally started paying attention to it probably a year ago. I have 3 young kids. Mine definitely got affected. I don't expect it to get rolled back or changed. I don't know why it just wasn't brought out as 8 o'clock and it was 7:45, and it seems like, hey, we got you to 8 anyway. That seemed a little strange in the end. I think the implementation piece of it's going to be important. I've heard other towns have done this not at the cost of the younger kids. And for me, I wasn't totally involved, so I'm not going to say whether I would be for or against it necessarily at this point. It just feels like when half the town is as angry as they were about the decision, there's got to be something wrong with the decision. But again, I'm not saying that was the wrong decision, but there's a lot of really angry people talking. And I feel like they feel like they haven't been heard. And I hear a lot of trust in science. You can imagine I'm skeptical of that after this year. And there's just as much, I've seen just as much science on the other side. So I don't know.
Okay. Thank you. Dan.
I would say post-referendum, I don't think this is likely to get rolled back. But I do think that there were some serious flaws in the process and that communication could be better. And I understand that people on the current board might think that that's not the case. But in talking to the community, if such a big percentage of the community does think the process wasn't good and the communication wasn't good and their concerns weren't addressed and listened to, then that's the case. It doesn't mean we can make everyone happy on every issue, but we need to figure out a better way to engage with the community, substantively listen to their concerns, not just read their emails, but go back and forth and hear the dialogue. One thing I would say is this is another item that the board has delegated to Lexi and his staff. So there is an implementation committee, but it's not a board implementation committee. It's done by the administration. I think it's a perfect example where the board should have more active and engaged oversight of the administration. Because it's the rollout.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to our last question, and this is truly a yes/no question. So we can do like a speed round. We did that at the town council and got going. And Julie, I think you picked number 6. So we start with you. Here's the question. If you are not declared a winner at Tuesday's caucus, will you commit to supporting the winning Republican candidates in the November election?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Absolutely. 100%.
Without a doubt, yes.
That was painless. All right. Okay. All right. Well, that concludes our questions. I will now move on to the closing statements, and there are 2 minutes. And as we agreed, we'll start in reverse alphabetical order. So, Julie, we'll start again with you.
In closing, kids come first. If I'm elected to the Board of Education, I will represent our students, their families, and the New Canaan community to the district. I will listen to input from the experts. I respect the role of each of the town bodies, and I am extremely grateful to our hardworking teachers. I want to maximize the academic excellence for our kids. We are a team. We're here to work together to get the best possible outcome for our students. But most importantly, kids come first.
Thank you. Okay, Jennifer.
Yes, it's been an honor to serve this community. The community has given me so much. I love being engaged in volunteering in our schools. Prior to being on the Board of Ed, I served on the Western PC Board, SACS PC President for 2 terms. I was and am still involved in the Canaan High School PFA, having served in many chair roles. I was elected on the Board of Ed for 2 terms. I grew up here. I have 4 children in the schools, K through 12, and therefore I'm very well versed across grade curriculum. I know what is happening in our classrooms, our schools, and community, and also the college process. I'm well networked in town, and there are many families and therefore have a pulse on what the hot topics are and how to address them with the town bodies and administration. I love serving with my fellow board members, working through issues, seeking and guiding consensus. I believe that everyone has the right to be heard, and respectfully, everyone has the right to disagree. Discussion and debate is always healthy and it always brings forth good results. However, divisiveness fosters anger and negativity. If I'm elected, I will continue to listen to all constituents, ensure transparency, good decision-making, mutual respect, and foster unity. Ultimately, we all want what is best for our town and the children of New Canaan. I want to work with our schools, town bodies to make the right choices and decisions. I've been fortunate to be part of something big for the past 15 months, working to keep our schools open. Having our students in a classroom setting 97% of the year during a global pandemic is very impressive. I'm very proud of our administration, the teachers, staff, Dr. Lexi, and very proud of our board and the work we did. And Katrina, she did so much. And on top of it all, we had that tough decision at start times, and again, it was really hard to me that people weren't going to be happy, but we did what was right for the kids. I offer commitment, consistency, and leadership. I'm well informed on how our district works and the knowledge and experience to make decisions to maintain excellence in our schools. I will always encourage innovation and progress while being fiscally minded and conservative. I'm running for re-election because I care so much about our kids and our town and its future, and I'm so grateful for your support.
Thank you. Katrina.
Our schools are our town's greatest assets. While we should celebrate hard work and accomplishment this year, we need to strive for continued improvement in our schools, mindful of spending to maintain excellence in educating our students. Our school system is made up of 5 school buildings, over 4,200 students, 740 staff members. As board members, we oversee this system, and it requires focus and deep understanding of our schools and commitment. Experience and knowledge, both as community leaders and as parents, goes a long way. We spend much of our year developing and communicating our budget. We study the impact of state legislation and mandates. We listen to and respond to parent feedback and emails. We review curriculum K through 12. And most importantly, we are focused on educating and meeting all the academic and social and emotional needs of all of our students. I have been wholeheartedly committed and dedicated to helping lead our district through a very challenging and uncertain 6 months. I am proud of my efforts and the measures we took as a whole to keep our teachers, staff, and students safe and our kids in school. Our results this year were outstanding, best in state and surely nation-leading. It happened because we had the right people working together in sync and in support of our town and our schools. Looking ahead for 4 more years, I feel energized by the opportunities to continue to make positive impacts and change for our students. I care deeply about our school system, our kids, and doing all we can to enrich their lives, both academically and emotionally, especially after this past year. I have been a balanced, thoughtful board member who listens and internalizes all that I read in here before making decisions. I am proud of my leadership and the way our entire board has led together this year. I work to partner and problem solve with our administration, our town boards, and our school families to achieve success together. We did it, and we did it well. I ask for your vote and encourage you to support the leadership and experience needed for the future of our schools. Thank you.
Thank you. Patrick.
Thanks again to the RTC for having us here tonight for hosting this event. Again, I think Dr. Lutz and the Board of Ed did a phenomenal job in navigating the many challenges that came about as a result of the COVID-19 crisis. The success that he and his team had in keeping schools safe and open was a tremendous accomplishment, and it stood out both on a regional as well as national level. My hope is to help build upon those successes and assist in improving our schools at all levels. I've been involved in many activities in my years in New Canaan, both as a child here growing up, as well as an adult raising my own family. It's includes the Canaan Athletic Foundation, St. Aloysius Church, the Y, lacrosse, football, the Winter Club, as well as many other activities within the schools. And I will continue to be involved in this community going forward. As mentioned, my family is extremely invested in all aspects of this community, particularly the public schools, and that has been the case for decades now. As I said at the opening, I also think I'm equipped to utilize my financial background to help find ways to save taxpayer dollars through efficiencies. I've worked for various organizations throughout my career, both large and small. I'm currently at a financial services firm I helped co-found almost 9 years ago. But throughout my career, I've had to work effectively with different groups who frequently have different goals and different interests. I've done so in a straightforward, open way, and I feel strongly that I can contribute by working well with people throughout our town and school system. Again, I applaud the job the current Board of Ed did getting through the pandemic, and I hope to have a chance to contribute in the coming years. My family and I have benefited immensely from the Canaan Public Schools, and I want to make sure we continue to provide the best possible education for all our students in the years to come. So thanks again. I hope you're supportive.
Thank you. Jessica.
Again, I would like to thank the RTC for bringing us all together tonight to talk about the issues that I'm really passionate about. I would like to reiterate why I'm running. This is a continuation of 6 years of service to both the schools and community, not a new journey that I'm engaging in. I have been and would like to continue being an active participant in our school system and all of the children's educational experience. My many years of time on the PTCDs has been enlightening, fulfilling, sometimes frustrating, but always rewarding. Partnering with the administration, teachers, students, and parents this year brought a renewed appreciation for just how hard everyone works and how deeply they care for our children and each other. The give and take between all of the concerned parties is at times more tense than in the past. We were and are in unprecedented times, and some of the traditions, activities, and budgets needed refinement. What was clear, however, was that through my leadership of the board, parents' voices were heard by the administration was fair and open-minded, and the students came away with what can absolutely be considered a successful year. This successful partnership is the reason our schools stand out, and our standout schools are a reason many people, my family included, live in this town. With this spirit in mind, I would like to be able to continue my community and school involvement by serving on the Board of Education. Our schools set the standard as to how to operate in a pandemic. Nobody here can argue against the amazing job the administration and BOE did to keep the doors of our school open over 90% of school days for our elementary school students. Our schools are not broken. Our schools are the gold standard for public education, both locally and across the country. Working together with Dr. Lutzy, his subject matter experts, and the rest of the board will be a privilege, one that I do not and will not take lightly. With your support and input, I will stand up for all of our children to ensure that they can continue receiving the exemplary education that New Canaan is known for and prides itself on. I look forward to your support on Tuesday.
Thank you. Philip.
Yeah, like everyone else said, thank you so much to the RTC. It's been really fun getting to know a lot of you folks for the past few weeks. I'm sitting here today for a variety of different reasons. I believe the board needs to be much more outward-facing and accessible to parents on a day-to-day basis. I believe we need to establish a curriculum committee like our neighboring towns, so parents know exactly what their kids are being taught. But what actually got me started down this path was an edict that came down from the Connecticut Board of Health back in September. It said that my preschool son, who had just turned 4 a couple weeks earlier, needed to wear a mask in school. My son has a speech issue, as a lot of kids do at that age. When people don't understand what he's trying to say, which is fairly often actually, he gets very frustrated. Sometimes he acts out. He's been seeing a speech pathologist for the past year to try to fix the issue. So when our preschool decided to adopt the Connecticut Board of Health's masking guidelines, my wife and I were crushed, absolutely crushed. The last thing in the world we wanted to do was to pull him out of school and take him away from his friends and his teachers. He loves it there, we love it there, but there was no way in hell this kid was going to wear a mask in school or anywhere else for that matter, not the speech issue. So we looked into other schools and talked with other parents about potentially forming pods. We kicked around homeschooling, and if we had the bandwidth to pull that off, we even considered taking him out of school for a year. But all those options were problematic. Ultimately, I simply went to our doctor and begged her for a mask exemption. I told her we understood the COVID risks and believed the long-term psychological risks of masking a kid with a speech issue were far greater. She gave us the exemption. Leadership involves taking risks. Sometimes those risks are tangible and kind of easily quantifiable. Other times those risks are more reputational and harder to put a value on. My wife and I took a major risk in unmasking our son a year ago. We knew people were going to disagree with it. We knew people were going to judge us for it. We knew the school probably wasn't going to be happy about it. But we did it anyway because we believed deep down in our hearts that it was the right thing for our son. That's what real leadership is. Kids come first. If I'm fortunate enough to have your vote, kids will always come first as long as I'm on board.
Thank you. Dan.
So I'd like to thank the RTC for hosting this tonight and an opportunity for everyone to hear about our platform. I've been campaigning with Julie, Phil, and Hugo, and I think it's really exciting to see the town energized and engaged on a platform that we think we're bringing to the table. It's pretty simple. It's about improved transparency, a more accessible board, improved community and parent engagement, and much more engaged oversight of the administration. Touching on a few things, you touch on transparency. One of the big issues is there's too much work done in executive session, which is not available to the public, and that's the same thing with the Curriculum Leadership Council. Because it's an administration and not part of the board, the materials and how the decisions are ultimately made aren't transparent to the public. And no people in town should be in a situation where a parent has to file a Freedom of Information request and have the administration not try and disclose how the curriculum was created. I think that's a problem. So I want a board that's more transparent, more engaged. And on the curriculum front, I think it's low-hanging fruit to have a curriculum committee that has board members on it that can engage with the community and, again, not write curriculum, but have oversight over the administration. Understand who these experts are. Understand which consultants are being brought in. What is their agenda? I think parents in this town want to know. They care about their kids' education, and transparency around what our kids being taught is something that everyone should be behind. Lastly, I would say I do think it would be great to have some new voices, especially with young kids coming through the school system that are invested in the community and plan to live here for the next 15 years. And I think I can bring a great energy and a lot of focus on improving academic excellence for our community.
Okay, thank you. Hugo.
When these guys approached me a month ago to volunteer for this position, I really didn't expect it. It kind of came out of nowhere, and it was an immediate yes, absolutely. Like, it just kind of this weird, energetic call to action that I had inside of me. It was pretty awesome. We've had so much fun together, meeting people in the community, listening to people in the community. Yeah, every time I hear Pat talk about how many people he's related to in town, I feel like I should have consulted with 23andMe before running again. That said, what I lack in local DNA, I make up for in tremendous gratitude and appreciation for what we have in this town. I started earlier by saying, our parents, they got us here. It's why we're here. It's why we're here for our kids. And this is the American dream for me. And when I watch what's coming out of Hartford, frankly, it's an assault on that, in my opinion. And they're coming for you guys too. They're coming for everybody. You know, it's our money from taxes. It's land through zoning. It's the most important part. They're coming after our kids, and it can be melodramatic at times, but that's how I feel, and that's why I feel this call to action. I think it's super important to protect what we have. It's pristine. I do agree we have a great administration. I want to help them do the best job possible going forward and make sure the community doesn't ever feel the way that they did with the start time thing or the max thing or anything that comes down the pike. I know that's hard, but I've got passion for it. I've got the grit for it. I've got young kids. I'm active. I want I'd love to have 50 albums in New Canaan, all registerable Republicans in the future, so I can have the same story that my opponent does. I think it's remarkable, and I would love your vote. I work really hard. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you. And thank you to all the candidates. Why don't we give them a round of applause?
wonderful parade. Thanks to people on the RTC. Dan, thanks for putting this together. Thank you, Christina. Thank you, Jean. Thank you, Pavla. Thank you, Fred, especially Fred, Marianne, John, Maria. If I'm missing anybody, sorry. Candidates, Board of Ed candidates, see me before you leave. Join us at the sidewalk sale this Saturday. Don't forget the Fazio event at the Williams on the 26th. And come to the caucus, 6 o'clock gavel, 6:30 voting. See you then.